Look at that. It's over half of the crowd this morning. Okay, wonderful. Was Dell good or not? Yeah. I've gotten to know Dell pretty well, and is a remarkable man of determination, doing a job that will spend as much time with us yesterday as he did. So I thought, you know, that movie was, or I should say the documentary was an hour and 20 minutes long, and seemed like everybody stayed, but that's a good thing. Okay, so how many of you have this bag? How many of you have looked into it? Oh, okay, we're making progress. Yesterday, I talked to a number of people and nobody had looked into it. So I do want you to remind you to look into it, because it had, this bag is worth a couple $1,000s from vendors and sponsors that put discounts and things in it, not the least of which is the Friends of John Miller $2,500 discount for the Lyme. So if that's something you want to do, that was entirely sponsored by the clinic in Germany, and also the Emily Chiropractic Center. Dr. Kelly will be here later today. She's got a workshop. So make use of this, take a look at it. Also, I want to do a shout out for the girls that packed these. If you can imagine packing 1,500 of these, there's a lot of work. There's a lot of work that goes into some of these things we don't think about. Okay.
Hey, just a few words from me. The one thing I noticed walking around last night and this morning is I don't think I've had an event here where we've had so little trash laying around. So thank you very much. We don't mind picking up your trash, but man, is it nice when you don't leave trash. So we really appreciate that. I wasn't sure if it's you guys or if it's my trash collection team that's making sure. So I guess thank you to all of you for taking care of, for making sure there's no trash. You know, an event like this, the people at the print shop work long hours to make sure that our signs are printed when we plan poorly, and the campground staff and the extra staff that we hire, they work as long as they need to make things happen. So if you see them around, maybe just slip in a thank you. They work really hard to make sure everything works right. And we don't get everything right. The things that we get right, you can thank God for, because he fills in a lot of blanks for us. The things that are wrong, we get all the credit for. So we know that some of our ticketing isn't perfect. Some of the meal, you know, when you buy your tickets, we had cut off the meals here the last 2 weeks so we could get a count. And some of our ticketing with the meals was not as great as it should be. Hopefully we can make that great again next year. So thanks for your patience with that. Yeah, I think that's it. I'm glad you're having a good time. Make yourself at home. If this is your first morning, make yourself at home. The grounds is yours. Do whatever you please. There's 94 acres here. You can enjoy a walk around the perimeter if you like. If you need some time to unwind at the end of the day. So make yourself at home. We're looking forward to another good meal by the Bylers at noon today. And we've got food trucks on the far end of the parking lot. There's food trucks with drinks, special drinks, coffee drinks, are in one of the tents. So make sure you check those out. I think that's all I have. You want to pray?
Yeah.
You or me?
I'll pray. Heavenly Father, we come before you this morning very grateful and mindful of the fact that you make things happen here that we don't get done. We just thank you for the people you have brought here. We pray that we would be able to serve them and that they would be able to learn and that we would all grow together. We ask for your protection and especially the weather today. We are mindful of the miracle of last night. And we just we don't know what to ask for, so we ask for those things that escape our notice, and we know you're present, and we pray this in our Savior's name, Jesus Christ. Amen. Okay. So this morning, I want to mention we have a couple of people that fit this category, Asher Standard being one of them, Layman's being another, where they both sponsor and speak. And our first speaker to kick it off this morning is Sally Morell. I got it wrong here. Sally, sorry, I'm not awake yet. Sally Fallon Morell, I'll get that right. I thought I had it stored away. So she's the CEO of the Weston Price Foundation. They're a sponsor as well as a speaker at this event. So please welcome her this morning.
Thank you. I'm shaking your hand. Sorry. Good morning. So I hope that most of you were here yesterday, because I'm just continuing on. And I will just summarize. Yesterday we talked about the importance of the fat-soluble vitamins, vitamins A, D, and K, and how high they were in traditional diets and very much lacking in the modern diet. And I'll just summarize with this chart about the good fats and oils. Butter is the healthiest fat on the planet. You should be eating as much butter as you like. And lard is our best source of vitamin D in the Western diet. Olive oil, you make your salad dressing with olive oil. Duck fat is a great fat for vitamin K. So butter, lard, and duck fat, that's A, D, and K right there. Coconut oil has other benefits, and of course your cod liver oil. You don't cook with cod liver oil, please. That's your medicinal fat. Well, another thing that we find in traditional diets is the use of broth made from the bones and the skin of the chicken or the duck or beef or whatever. Broth is like melted collagen. It's full of glycine, and it supports not only your bones, your joints, and your tendons, your collagen in your body. You have more collagen than you have muscle in your body, and it needs to be nourished. And is also very important for the brain. So bone broths, hope that you can get a slow cooker and start making bone broth. They supply many minerals in the form that you can easily assimilate. They help build cartilage and collagen. They are very detoxifying, and we live in a toxic world. We need that constant detoxification. The gelatin in broth helps digestion, it supports gut health, and the glycine in broth regulates our mood. There really is something to the chicken soup for the soul. So we talked about what we should be eating. Let's just have a few slides on what we shouldn't be eating. Just say no to industrial food-like substances. They're not food. And these are the four horses of the apocalypse. Number one is the industrial seed oils. And I cannot stress that enough. They are toxic. So any processed food is going to have them in it. Refined sweeteners. We eat way, way too many sweet things. Pasteurization and extrusion. These are processes that destroy the nutrients in our food, especially milk. And then the mountains of additives. The average American eats 10 pounds of additives per year, and they are very toxic. And that includes the the agricultural toxins like Roundup on our food. So the worst offenders are the industrial fats and oils, high fructose corn syrup, and by the way, agave nectar is made just like high fructose corn syrup. It's not a real food, and it's made from the enzymatic conversion of starch to fructose. And there's far more free fructose in the agave than there is in high fructose corn syrup. MSG, monosodium glutamate, free glutamic acid, is in all processed foods. It's not labeled. And this is a real toxin to the brain. And one of the things it does is causes weight gain. It messes with your appetite control in the brain and causes you to overeat and causes weight gain. There's no question that processed foods, even if you're eating the same amount as real foods, are going to make you gain weight. Artificial sweeteners, the modern soy foods full of estrogens, and soy foods depress thyroid function. They cause thyroid problems. Breakfast cereals, extruded breakfast cereals. The extrusion process is a little bit like pasteurization. It destroys the proteins in the grains. And then pasteurized and homogenized milk. These are not real foods. They're not whole foods. So we looked at the good fats. Here are the bad fats, all the margarines and the spreads, the industrial salad dressings. Please make your own salad dressing. Read the list of ingredients on these bottle dressings. You know, it's a paragraph long. Of course, the liquid oils, which are already rancid, and then they tell you to cook with them. What do you cook with? What's the fat for cooking? Lard, like our ancestors, okay? Full of vitamin D. And then formaldehyde. Formaldehyde is what they use to preserve bodies. And what are the undertakers telling us? That they don't need as much formaldehyde anymore to preserve the bodies. The bodies are already partially pickled. And that comes from the industrial seed oil. So that's what they're doing to your body. And then the partially hydrogenated, the solid oils inhibit reactions in the body. So the result, we don't know the exact specifics of what the result is going to be in your body, but it's definitely biochemical chaos. Does that mean we can't have fried foods? Absolutely not. Learn to make oven fries. They're just absolutely delicious with duck fat, lard, or tallow. And we're not telling you can't eat delicious things or that you have to renounce certain wonderful foods. But we're just saying make them yourself with the good fats. Sugar, we'll transfer now. We go from oils to sugar. Sugar is empty. This is what started the degeneration of the healthy traditional people that Dr. Price described. Sugar is everywhere in processed foods. It's just everywhere. And snuck into foods. You wouldn't think there'd be sugar in barbecue sauce, but it's loaded with sugar. You wouldn't think there'd be sugar in Cheerios, but it's there. They add sugar to dried fruits. Please read labels. Let's see. So how do you get rid of the sugar cravings? I mean, this is the struggle I had. I was addicted to sugar growing up as a teenager. And there's one very interesting study that took place in 2020. They got rats addicted to sugar. They had this little thing where they could come and get their sugar water. And they fed the rats a diet that was 40% lard. And they didn't want the sugar water anymore. It completely cured their addiction. So the solution to sugar addiction, and I learned this myself, is a very high-fat diet. And if I eat plenty of fats, I simply don't want the sugar. It shouldn't be an effort of willpower. It should be that your body's saying, I don't want this. And that's what happened in this study. And the researchers weren't very happy about it. They said the high-fat diet caused a motivational impairment for the sweet, palatable food. So the food industry doesn't want you to get over your sugar addiction. Soy foods, I think we've kind of won that battle. They have pretty much disappeared from the supermarkets. And it was really the Weston A. Price Foundation pointing out how toxic and dangerous these soy foods are. They are terrible for digestion, they're terrible for your thyroid gland, and they're absolutely loaded with estrogens. So MSG is just everywhere. It's in all processed foods. Just take a TV dinner and it's got something that looks like gravy on it. Real gravy is made from bone broth and the fats from the chicken or the roast and a little bit of flour. That's how you make real gravy, and because it's full of glycine and gelatin, it's good for you. It helps you digest the meat that you're eating. But that stuff that looks like gravy there is just water, a coloring, a thickener, and an MSG to make it taste like meat. And all of these processed foods contain MSG. It's usually not labeled. MSG has been definitely associated with weight gain, obesity, diabetes. It causes migraine headaches. It's associated with neurological disorders like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, anxiety. It's very, very toxic to the brain. And all of this is hidden in processed foods. They're really the foods of demons. And this is how they're labeled. Anything hydrolyzed, all the caseinates, anything's extracted, proteins, isolated proteins. Soy foods are very high in MSG. Flavors, artificial flavors, and even natural flavors. Excuse me. Even natural flavors can contain MSG. A wonderful book, I don't know if it's even in print anymore, it's called Excitotoxins, and it explains what MSG does. At high concentrations, it immediately shrivels up the brain cells, and they die. They just disintegrate and die. But even at lower concentrations, it's just a slower process. It shrivels the brain cells, and they die. Now, brain cells can come back. We can rebuild them. But if you're constantly eating processed food, constantly getting this excitotoxic effect from MSG, your body can't keep up with that. And then, of course, all the dyes in the foods, and there's been a lot of attention to this, but they are also very toxic. All right, so those are the don'ts. Let's now concentrate on the things we should be doing. And one of the things that's happened in the last 20 years is we've had a complete paradigm shift. The old paradigm was that bacteria were bad, they attacked us, and they made us sick. We now know that the healthy gut contains about 6 pounds of beneficial bacteria. We call that good flora. And without that beneficial bacteria, we're actually dead. We absolutely need that beneficial bacteria. It prevents the absorption of toxins. It produces vitamins. It produces feel-good chemicals for our brains. So we need to honor that gut flora. And all traditional cultures had fermented foods that contained good bacteria that replenish the bacteria in the gut every day. So, whoops. This was the old paradigm. The 6 pounds of healthy bacteria in our digestive tract. It helps us digest our food, assists with assimilation, helps us assimilate the food. It creates nutrients. It forms a biofilm along the walls of the digestive tract that keep out the bad guys, keep out the toxins, keep out the heavy metals, and help us feel good. So without good bacteria, we're dead. And the way that we daily replenish that bacteria is by eating fermented foods. The dinner last night was wonderful. We had the leftover brisket. That brisket was so delicious, full of good fat. You always eat protein with the fat. All traditional people understood that. And we had beautiful sauerkraut. So you want to have some sauerkraut or some kind of fermented food with every meal. And I'm going to brag a little here. The book that introduced this concept to the West was my book, Nourishing Traditions. And these are all, thank you. These are all recipes from the book. It doesn't have to be sauerkraut. It can be beets, carrots, different types of sauerkraut. It can be pineapple. We have a pineapple chutney, a raspberry chutney, and an apricot butter, which you can put on your oatmeal. So there's all kinds of ways of getting these good beneficial bacteria into your digestive tract. And kombucha. This has just exploded. You can buy kombucha in any grocery store now. And this is the wonderful, healthy alternative to soft drinks. Again, we don't like to tell you that you have to renounce something. We like to show you the alternative, the healthy alternative. And the healthy alternative is kombucha. And I took this photograph in Spain. And it's not just, this is worldwide. In fact, the country with the most companies making kombucha is, anyone want to guess? It's Brazil. So this is a worldwide revolution in getting these good, healthy soft drinks full of good bacteria back into our diets. The real masters of fermented beverages are the Africans, still living in the traditional way. They make these, what they call near beers. They're very low alcohol, very high in lactic. But raw milk is the ideal food for growing children. Whatever you do, make sure your kids get raw milk. We all make mistakes with our children's diet, and they go to birthday parties, and there's no way you can keep them entirely from the processed foods. But children drinking raw milk are very much protected. They get very usable calcium and phosphorus for optimal growth. They'll have strong bones, they'll have strong teeth. If you give them raw milk and keep the sugar to a minimum, they will not get cavities. They protect against asthma, allergies, and eczema. We have 16 studies now showing how protective raw milk is of these typical childhood conditions. It builds the immune system. Glutathione in raw milk is our main protection against toxins in a toxic world, and raw milk helps build a healthy gut wall. So we have a website, realmilk.com. You can put your zip code in or your state in and find the real milk near you. And by real milk, it's raw, pasture-fed, and has all the fat in it. You don't take the fat out. Fat is the food, the fat in nature for all mammals. There can't be anything wrong with it. And in fact, the butter fat in milk drag on your digestion. So all of these anti-nutrients, enzyme inhibitors, you eat a lot of whole grains that haven't been prepared properly to get rid of those enzyme inhibitors, you're going to have problems with your pancreas, because it can't deal, it has to kind of counteract all the enzyme inhibitors. Phytic acid blocks minerals. Your preparation needs to make sure that you get rid of the phytic acid. Tannins and lectins are very irritating, and a lot of these components of grains are indigestible for humans. This is the herbivore stomachs. They have from 2 to 4 chambers. The cow has 4 stomachs. And basically what they do is ferment the grains. They can't digest them either. They have to ferment them in their stomachs. But we have a simple stomach, many variations, large and small, but we are not designed to digest grains. And all traditional cultures understood this, and they digested them before they ate them with a fermentation process. So the proper preparation of seed foods imitates these factors in nature that neutralize the seed's preservatives, quote unquote, and allow it to sprout. And those 4 factors are moisture, warmth, slight acidity, and time. This is the traditional Cherokee corn preparation. They cooked the cornmeal, and then they wrapped it in a corn husk and put it aside for 2 weeks to allow it to ferment. So that's moisture, warmth, what did I say? Moisture, warmth, so slight acidity, and time. And only then did they eat the cornmeal. So you like oatmeal? Okay, no, I don't see a lot of enthusiasm for oatmeal. I used to think I was actually allergic to oatmeal. If I ate oatmeal, about 2 hours later, I would actually be on the floor with low blood sugar, toxic shock, and sweating and upset stomach. So I just stopped eating oatmeal. Then I learned about soaking the oatmeal. And so if you soak the oatmeal overnight, you add something acidic like whey or lemon juice or a little yogurt, soak it in a warm kitchen overnight, then cook your oatmeal. And you don't want to eat ever eat grains raw. They always need to be cooked. Wow, I had none of that reaction. I could go all morning. As long as I could go on bacon and eggs, I could go on the oatmeal. So it's really a question of proper presentation. Here's our soaked and well-cooked oats, and the minerals have all been liberated. You want to put fat on there, butter or cream, so you don't get that blood sugar roller coaster. I prefer butter on my oatmeal, and I usually put about a half a stick of butter on my oatmeal. Well, you can put more on if you want to. I mean, make sure your kids go out the door with a good breakfast, please. What are good breakfasts? Well, here's some examples. Scrambled eggs with extra yolks and sauteed potatoes. What are you going to saute those potatoes in? Lard. Okay. A fried egg. These are pastured eggs, and then cooked bacon. We always put fruit in the bacon fat. So this is pineapple, or you can put some banana or tomatoes. We are the only diet that allows pineapple cooked in bacon fat. Okay. Or if you want a smoothie, please don't get those protein drink smoothies. You make your smoothie with whole yogurt, egg yolks, fruit, and coconut oil. It's a lovely high-fat, nourishing smoothie. And Scrapple, I can't praise Scrapple enough. It's a way of getting your liver every day, a little bit of liver every morning. Make sure they're making it the right way. Read the ingredients. There's got to be liver in there. Okay. Not good foods. These breakfast cereals have been processed with a process called extrusion, which subjects the grains to very ice. That's an extruded cereal, fat-free milk, and then orange juice. And don't get me started on the orange juice. The worst chemicals, the worst pesticides in the world are put on oranges. And the way they make orange juice today is to squeeze the whole orange, including the peel. So these are the highest pesticide food that you can eat, is the commercial orange juice. Sorry to ruin that for you. But squeeze an orange. Squeeze an organic orange into a glass. That's how I gave my kids their cod liver oil. I mix the cod liver oil with the orange juice, or you can add sparkling water or something like that, and you have a nice orange spritzer. So we're not saying you can't have orange juice. Just make sure you have gotten organic oranges and squeeze them yourself. So these are more cruel breakfasts, this type of thing you get, when you're traveling in the hotel breakfast. These are diabetes starter kits here. Just sugar, no good fats, no protein. The coffee is a jolt on the adrenal glands. The orange juice with its neurotoxic pesticides. Please. This is the blood sugar roller coaster that you want to avoid. When you eat good protein and good fat with every meal, your blood sugar stays stable. And when you've got this blood sugar roller coaster, you are putting tremendous strain on your adrenal glands and your whole body. So we say get to know sourdough, learn to find, you can make it, but I'm not saying everyone has to make it, but find out where this real sourdough bread is. And this is the kind of bread that is easy to digest. They did studies in Italy of people diagnosed with celiac disease, and what they found was if they gave them genuine sourdough bread, they had no problem with wheat at all. What we really think is happening is the gluten intolerance is actually glyphosate intolerance, as the glyphosate has increased and they spray it on grains just before harvest. Yeah, it's a toxin. And by the way, they don't do that in Europe. It's not the gluten, it's the glyphosate. But I also think it's the gluten, because the grains have not been prepared right. And this is how you eat your bread. You want to see teeth marks in the butter. Salt. Salt is a sacred food. We absolutely need salt. People who are telling you to go on low-salt diets are demons, okay? You need salt for protein digestion. If you don't get enough salt, you're going to get acid reflux. And acid reflux is not from having too much acid in the stomach, it's from having too little acid in the stomach. And you have too little acid because you're not eating enough salt and you're not getting enough chloride to make hydrochloric acid. We also need salt for carbohydrate digestion. We need the sodium for enzymes for carbohydrate digestion. Our Creator did not put a salt taste in our mouth to torture us, but to make sure that we put salt on our food. And you want unrefined salt, okay, with all the minerals. We need salt for brain development. This idea that you should put babies on low-fat diet is genocide. Babies need salt for the development of their brain. We need salt for adrenal function, cellular metabolism. You need salt for hormone production. Oops. So we figured out how to ruin our salt just like we figured out how to ruin everything else in the food supply. You don't want a processed, unrefined white salt. You want the salt with all the minerals left in it. So your salt should be gray, beige, or pink, not white, indicating the presence of minerals. Anybody heard of Simonix? Anyone know what it is? This is something that snuck into the food supply. It is a very, very potent salt substitute or sugar substitute. It's in all processed foods. It's not labeled. And we have no idea what it's doing to us. But we can guess. Because if it's like MSG, it's even worse. So this is just one more reason to avoid all processed foods. So anyone here ever get tired? Okay. One of the reasons we get tired is that we're having to spend a lot of energy on digestion. So the easier you can make the digestion, the more energy you're going to have. And I learned this myself. I was a tired kid until I put all these things into practice. So that's raw milk, not pasteurized. Pasteurized is extremely hard to digest. Proper preparation of grains. Give me 5. Proper preparation of grains. Lacto-fermented foods with all the good bacteria and enzymes, the gelatin-rich bone broths, and the fat-soluble vitamins and animal fats. I guarantee you, if you start incorporating all these things into your diet, write down your symptoms, and then check 6 months later. You will be amazed at how many things have cleared up and how much more energy you have. To cook or not to cook? Some foods we cook and some foods we don't cook. Meat and seafood in traditional cultures were eaten both raw and cooked for 110 degrees. Grains should always be cooked. They need to be soured and cooked. None of this raw muesli. That's going to tear up your gut. Fruits, by the way, surprisingly, most fruits should be cooked. Temperate fruits are high in pectin, and it's hard to digest. And vegetables should be mostly cooked or fermented. The tender vegetables in salads, that's okay for some people. But a lot of people can't even do salads. So this is how they want us to eat. This is the virtuous, plant-based, low-fat, low-salt, high-fiber diet, approved by dietitians, impossible to stay on. You get cravings on this diet. And here's another puritanical diet, the paleo diet, is dry meat and dry vegetables. So what do these puritanical diets do? They push you right into the arms of the pornographic foods. What's wrong with the way we used to eat? The chicken with the skin and the gravy made with the fat and the broth. The roast with all the delicious fat on it. Vegetables with butter and cream, and soups with butter and cream. These are health foods. These are delicious foods. This is the way we are designed to eat. And this is what we need to get back to. Avoiding the extremes. Too much animal food, too much plant food. All of these foods can be consumed by humans, especially if they're properly prepared. And you don't have to eat kale. It's the most disgusting vegetable. Oh my goodness. So we like to say you can have it all. There's no deprivation on the Wise Traditions diet. You can have meat, sauces and gravy, and you want to eat organ meats. You want to make sure you're getting some liver in your diet. You can have bacon on this diet. You can have eggs. Make sure they're pastured eggs. Seafood. You can have all these delicious fats. You can have all the butter that you want. You can have salt, grains, milk and cheese, lacto-fermented pickles. You can have vegetable soups, sweets, natural sweeteners, maple syrup, honey. Those are the sweeteners that God gave us. And we have a sweet tooth in our mouth. That needs to be satisfied also, but in a moderate way. And soft drinks like kombucha. There's nothing that you have to give up on this diet. It's just making wise choices. Finally, it's so important to prepare your body for having children. Traditional cultures had special foods for 6 months before they conceived. And these were very nutrient-dense foods like liver, butter, raw milk, seafoods like fish eggs. So we really promote a nutrient-dense diet for pregnancy, lactation, and growth, and we promote child spacing. In traditional cultures, it was considered shameful to have a child more than once in every 3 years. This allowed the mother to recover her nutritional stores and made sure that every child was born with the same nutrition to start with. Okay. What's the most children that was had by any of the patriarchs' wives? Does anyone know? It was Leah. 6 children. 6 children. That's all. We have a book, Honoring Our Cycles, that helps you space your children the natural way without hormones. It needs a lot of cooperation between husband and wife. That's a good thing. Okay. So the preconceptual diet starts 6 months before conception. Okay, they're about to take the cane and pull me off the stage. So please come to 10th C. We have the Weston A. Price table with all of our free flyers and literature, and we hope you'll become members. We have a wonderful, huge website, absolutely free to the public. Everything we've ever published is on this website. We have a shopping guide that names brand names. And we have 2 great booklets. Healthy for Life is our guidelines with recipes. And we have a new booklet, our 11 dietary principles. They're all available at 10th C, okay? And special baby issue and heart disease issue. And we have a wonderful podcast. If you learn by listening to our podcast. And I have my books there, a Nutrans table, and including the book for baby and child care, which explains all of these things, and a cookbook for children, fully illustrated. And you can order my other books if you want. And I'll stop here, we ask you all to take the pledge. Remember back in the 1800s, people took the pledge not to drink. Remember, in college? You probably don't because you weren't there. But now we ask you to take the pledge. Pledge to spend 50% of your food dollar with direct purchases from a farm or from an artisan, say, such as a bread maker. 50%. Raw milk, eggs, meat. Support your farmers. And the other 50% you can celebrate how small the world has become and enjoy rice and pineapple and limes and lemons and all of these wonderful foods that come in on every passenger plane every day. So they have a very low energy profile. Thank you very much. We'll see you in 10th C. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we have a special lady to come forward. There are always, behind every good man, there's a greater woman. So I'm going to invite Rebecca Wengard, the wife of Marcus Wengard, up on stage to introduce our next speaker.
I think you'll be blessed just listening to her, the inspiration that she has been to me. And I know my family, they love watching her stuff. So I think you'll be blessed and learn lots of good things.
Nope. Okay. Good morning, everyone. This is my first time in Holmes County, and you want to know my very first impression? Okay, normally when Elvin and I go places, Pennsylvania Dutch is our secret language because we speak it and nobody can understand what we're saying. It's our secret public language. We can, straighten out the kids. We can talk about you. Here we can't do that. I walked in and I'm like, everybody's speaking Pennsylvania Dutch. Elvin, we gotta watch our tongue. So my husband and I grew up Old Order Mennonite in Pennsylvania, which is very similar to the Amish. We drove horse and buggy, and Pennsylvania Dutch is our primary language. Also, not one person has come up to me and said, "What's your accent?" Normally when I go places, I always get that question. Where are you from? What's your accent? Are you from Ireland? No, I just have a weird mix of a New Jersey, Pennsylvania Dutch, English accent. So when I got here, and I'm not blaming anyone, but scheduling got moved around. I actually have 3 sessions today. This is a 30-minute one. Then I have a 2 o'clock session that I did not know about. Then I have a 4 o'clock session. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to get started this morning, and because the presentation that I'm doing this morning is normally an hour and 15 minutes, wherever we stop, I will finish this afternoon at 4 right here. At 2 o'clock, I think I'm in tent D, because I didn't prepare anything for that because I didn't know about that. I'm just gonna do a question and answer with Ruth Ann. And you guys can show up with your questions about anything and I will do my best to answer because I'm nothing if I'm not flexible, right? Blessed are the flexible, and that's me. I'm gonna be flexible and it's fine. So if you have questions, please bring them to the 2 o'clock session in tent D. It can be about gardening, the milk cows, anything you want to talk about. So my husband and I now live in Northeast Iowa. If you reach the Minnesota border, you've gone a little too far. And we have 7 children. 2 of them are married and busy giving us grandchildren. The youngest 5 are still at home. And so from the oldest to the youngest, they are ages 25 to 10. And you may have seen our 2 youngest, Kendrick and Harrison, running around here like the feral boys they are. They won't mind if you stop them to say hi. So long story short, we were born and raised Old Order Mennonite, so self-sufficiency is at our very roots. And the reason the Mennonites, or the reason that culture has stayed more self-sufficient, or has in the past, they are embracing convenience more than ever these days. But to go to the grocery store, you had to hitch up the buggy and take a whole day off of work to go get your groceries. It was easier to grow your own food the way they had done for many, many generations. So that is the culture that both my husband and I were raised in. When we left the Mennonite culture, and that's a story for another day, but in short, we met Jesus. Jesus said, "Follow me," and we stepped into the modern world. We did not embrace the modern world for more than like 2 years until we were like, wait, TV is not all it's cracked up to be, right? But we embraced it for a little bit. I must say the horse and buggy, the car was a big improvement over the horse and buggy. We didn't back off of that at all. TV and media, we kind of took a step backward. I forget where I was going with this story, but anyway, so we embraced the modern life. We can't just remove parts of the body, like there's no spare parts. And so this started us on a journey of a low-tox diet, right? Because we realized that the tonsils were filtering toxins from the blood. And not only does our daughter still have her tonsils at 24 years old, at 5 years old, she became a whole different person when we've removed all of the junk from our diets. And that is kind of when we dove headfirst into the self-sufficiency lifestyle of our childhood. But this time it was, because, wait, you milk a cow? Wait, you milk a cow? You're gonna kill your children from drinking raw milk. And that made me even more popular. And the reason I wrote the children's book about chores is because children, the enemy of the family, tries to isolate us, right? Tries to isolate us and make us think we're the only people going through this. Children are not exempt from that. We are the only children that have to milk a cow before we go to school. Life is so hard, right? So in my children's book about chores, I attempted to make chores on the homestead an everyday occurrence so that other children know they are not the only ones. There is other children that have to work and milk the cows and pick the beans and pull weeds as well. So that's a little bit about us. And what I'm gonna start on this morning and then hopefully finish this afternoon is kind of a big picture of the purpose of a homestead, the purpose of our homestead, and hopefully it will inspire you. Because sometimes what I've seen happening is people embrace the homestead lifestyle, but they don't simplify. So they're trying now to homestead, which means they're trying to have milk cows or goats and gardens, but they also have all of their modern life as well. And so now they're doubly as busy and burned out because they've forgotten that homesteading really is simplifying. And it starts with, and over the last couple years when I've traveled to these conferences, I have visited with people that have been homesteading for years and years, decades, before it became popular. And they all have one thing in common, and that is a simplified diet. A very simple diet, because what happens when we're raising all of our own food and we forget to simplify our diet, it's doubly as expensive on our resource of time. Because not only are we spending all this time raising our own food, but we also have to make money so we can buy the foods that we want that don't grow on our homestead. And for the simple sake of this presentation, I'm gonna pick on avocados. Okay, because avocados don't grow here, they don't grow where I grow. If you live where avocados grow, you are exempt from what I'm going to say about avocados. But in a nutshell, if you don't live where avocados grow, you shouldn't have them every morning on your toast. That is the simplified lifestyle. As much as I love pineapples and avocados, I only buy them when it's my birthday because I can't grow them where I live. Our primary source of nutrition, the bulk of our meals, comes from the homestead. So, okay, I'm gonna try and stick to my notes. So I call this eating seasonally and regionally, which means you eat what is in season. On our homestead, we do not sell things that we grow or raise. And here's why. This is what happened one day. So we have 2 milk cows, and the reason we have 2 milk cows is because I have boys, and we are raising them to be men, so they don't get to sleep all morning. They have to get up and milk the cow before they go to school, or even in the summertime when they're not attending school, they need to get up and milk the cow because the cow's mooing and mooing and mooing, right? Because I'm raising men, that is why we have 2 milk cows. If we only had 1 milk cow, I would be the one milking her and let the boys sleep because I love milking cows. So that's why we have 2, because the other one is simply for the purpose of turning our boys into men. Because if we raise weak men, you've all heard this, weak men create hard times create strong men create easy times create weak men, and that's the cycle. But we don't have to get on it. We can be counterculture, and we can raise strong men in every generation. Anyway, that's the long way of saying we have 2 milk cows. Okay, so here's where I was going with this story. When you have 2 milk cows, you're gonna have an excess of milk, right? the easiest thing to do is sell that milk. And so one day, I watched this milk go out the drive, and it was 2 gallons. We charge $5 a gallon. You know, we're not really for profit. So now I have 10 bucks. And I'm like, oh, I can use this $10 to buy, you know, more hay for the cows, or I can go to the grocery store. And I'm like, wait, using this $10 to go to the grocery store and buy what? Lesser quality dairy products? Absolutely not. And that day changed my mind, and I started learning how to make cheese, because the best way to preserve milk is to make aged cheeses. So no milk leaves our property now. Well, I take that back. Friends call and say, do you have milk? I'll say, sure. But we're not for profit, we are for nutrition. All the extra milk that I don't turn into cheese, I skim it, and of course I make the butter because I really love butter. The whole family loves butter. The skim milk goes to the pigs and they turn it into bacon. We are for nutrition, and our milk cow is at the center of that. So that is part of the little bit of the story that made me be like, wait, no, nothing leaves this farm until it has fed the family first. Because any money that I have, we all think we need more money so we can buy better quality groceries and supplements. But the truth is, money anymore does not buy you nutrition. Not the same kind of nutrition you could raise on your own land. That is your primary source of nutrition. You don't need more money, you just need more skills, and you need to use your time to grow your nutrition. That is where your best source of nutrition is coming from, and I'm gonna get into a little more of this, but let's say, for example, okay, I can't see you guys very well, but usually I look to see how scary you are before I start this next part. And it's going to be about supplements. Don't boo me off the stage. I can't see you, but I can hear some laugh, okay? Let's talk about probiotics, for example. Super expensive. And the reason I stopped is like, which one of my family members do I love the most? Which one's gonna take these expensive probiotic supplements, because I can't afford to feed them to all of us. So now I have to choose. Do I love myself the most? And I'm gonna buy these probiotics for myself? What can I do to make more money so I can buy supplements for the whole family? And then, because we're talking about probiotics, I was like, wait, what is the original? Like way back, what are probiotics? They're simply fermented foods, and you can make fermented foods for pennies. It is that simple. You don't have to ferment everything. You don't have to go that far. Fermented pickles is something that my family will eat at every lunch or dinner. Sauerkraut, Elvin and I will eat sauerkraut. The kids are not so happy about that. You can ferment pickles for pennies. All it takes is some good salt and water. You can add dill, you can add garlic if you want to. You don't have to. Now I can get good quality probiotics into the whole family for pennies. And here's the other thing, the freeze-dried probiotics, they go through your system. They don't all. Some of us have a really fast system. They go out the other end and they're not all rehydrated. You don't get the billions that you get when you eat live probiotic food, fermented foods. Okay, so I can hear by your response that some of you are thinking, I don't like fermented foods. Here's what's gonna happen. You're not gonna like them the first week you eat them, but your taste buds change. And your gut is actually what influences what you're hungry for. So the healthier your gut is, the hungrier you're going to be for fermented foods. The more live and active cultures that are happening in here, and by week 2 or 3, if you've been consistent with eating 1 fermented pickle or 1 tablespoon of sauerkraut every meal, you're gonna start craving the fermented foods. And if you're not, here's what you're going to tell yourself. My taste buds are not the boss of me. I am the boss of my taste buds. It's what I tell the kids. You are the boss of your taste buds. We have to start the dialogue with ourselves and with our children that we have to eat for nutrition. And here's why we have to start this dialogue. Food additives that override everything. Flavor enhancers are in everything that you're going to buy that comes in a package. And they override any natural flavors, and they make your brain go, wow, that was good. And then you want more. There is nothing in nature that does that. It is unnatural. It's on your label as natural flavors. And that is what is keeping you from craving that fermented pickle, is those flavor enhancers. And it can take a long time to heal our brains from thinking that every food we put into our mouth should go, wow, and light up those parts of our brain. We have got to start the dialogue with ourselves and with our children that when you say something is really, really good, that is unnatural. That's the flavor enhancers talking. That is it. Okay, moving on to collagen. What is the original source of collagen? And how can we make it from the homestead for pennies? Bone broth. Guess what? We have all been trained to think that chicken feet are disgusting. Who started that lie? Chicken feet are collagen. You scrub them up, you can peel them, you can sculpt them and skin them. That's collagen. You don't have to buy the $50, $60 a can collagen peptides. You can grow them on your homestead, and most people are throwing them out. That is how you bypass and don't need to spend that. And you can add bone broth to almost everything. I added bone broth to my children's smoothies when they were toddlers. They never knew it. Okay, there was another one. Oh, protein powder. Oh, I'm glad to hear you laughing, not booing me off the stage. I want to tell you, I have probiotics and collagen. I think I don't have collagen and protein powder in my cupboard, okay? They're there for emergency uses or when somebody's sick, but the bulk of these nutrients comes from the homestead, right? Okay. Whey protein powder. Do you know that when I make a 5-pound wheel of cheese, I have gallons of whey left? Or even if I make some homemade yogurt, I strain it because we like a thicker yogurt, right? I'll have like 2 quarts of good whey left. And it is full of nutrition. Some of you are pouring that whey down the drain. Who started that lie? That you can pour that whey down the drain and buy protein powder for $40. It's upset. Okay, so here's my other question. If protein, so the whey that I've saved from my yogurt is in a natural form, right? It's not been altered except by my yogurt making. So it is in the form that nature intended whey to be used. If whey powder does not exist in nature in powder form, then are our bodies really designed to have that amount of protein in one meal? If it's not found in nature in that concentration, are we really designed to consume it? And if you dig a little bit on this subject, you can find how whey protein powder in those large amounts taxes your organs, because we were not designed to digest that amount at that time, at one time. Anyway, I have them in my cupboard. I will use them occasionally. But first, I want to know what's the original form of this supplement. Where did it come from? How can I make it for pennies off the homestead? And that's when I say our homestead is not for profit. It is primarily for nutrition. Whatever we don't consume, the pigs turn into bacon or the chickens turn into eggs. Now, how to implement this using your time. If we stop believing that we need more money, then we have more time. Because your resource of time, all your resources should equal nutrition. And if you are, my husband works a full-time job, so I'm not picking on anybody that works instead of stays home. I'm just saying, is the nutrition that you're buying with the money that you spend, with the money that you make, is it worth, let's say, $8 of nutrition? If I walk into the grocery store with $8, I could buy one giant family-sized box of cereal. That's convenience speaking, right? I could maybe buy 2 dozen eggs or maybe a rotisserie chicken. So we have to make those $8 equal nutrition, not convenience. We have to stop being blinded by convenience. Your time, how long did it take you to earn that $8? What could you do with that half an hour of time or 20 minutes of time? Can you take care of chickens 20 minutes a day? Yes. And in the long run, you're going to have invested a whole lot less time in those chickens than if you were consistently buying pastured eggs. Are you following what I'm saying? Your resource of time is your most valuable resource when you are trying to buy nutrition. And so then when you own your own land, or even a little plot of land, I have seen people do amazing things with little plots of land, then you become independent from the grocery store. Where, what if, this is the mind game I play with myself, when I have to go weed the garden, and convenience kind of whispers in my ear that, well, pasta sauce isn't that expensive at the grocery store, right? I haven't bought pasta sauce in quite a number of years. So then as I'm walking to the garden, I tell myself, what if there was no plan B? Our parents, great-grandparents and grandparents in the Depression, they didn't have a plan B. They couldn't say, well, if my tomatoes don't produce, or my potatoes, because potatoes are more of a sustenance crop for, that era. If my potatoes don't produce, I'll just go to the, neighbor who I know grows for selling and buy his. He needs all of his for his family. So what if there was no plan B? By the time I'm to the garden, I have a whole different mindset about gardening. Because if I tell myself, what if there was no plan B? Because what if plan B means that I have to buy things that are gonna make my family sick? What if I have to buy potatoes that have been treated with an herbicide so that they don't sprout? Is that a plan B I'm comfortable with? What if I am going to buy pasta sauce that is full of what they call natural flavors, but it trains my family to love that store-bought pasta sauce, and my homemade pasta sauce is never gonna meet their expectations anymore? What if that's my plan B? So that's the game I play with myself when I grumble about having to go into the garden. I tell myself, let's garden as if there is no plan B. Let's raise our cows and our pigs as if there is no plan B. Like, this is our plan. And whatever we don't raise, we don't eat. So, okay. So then what also, just a little blurb, what if instead of sending our children off to be educated into the corporate world, we first make sure that they can think for themselves and they know the dialogue of the difference between nutrition and food. And then thinking for themselves, what if earning a paycheck isn't always enough to feed a family? And I'm not talking about just putting food on the table. What if, for healthy families, we need to have the skills of growing our own food more than we need the skill of earning a paycheck? So then that makes me, when I'm going to the garden, I'm about halfway there and I'm playing all this what ifs to motivate me. I stop and I yell at all the kids, you're coming to help me, because I want them to know this is how you raise your own food. So playing the what if game, what if there was no plan B, can really help you value your resource of time. So one of the things, and I think somebody forgot to start my timer, or am I out of time? Did you guys start my timer? Okay. So we're going to pick up this afternoon at 4, and I promise it's going to be more uplifting and not all of these heavy what ifs. And I promise you, I'm not telling you to go home and dump out your supplements. This is simply to change your way of thinking. Let's start thinking a little differently about the food that we're putting on our table. So 2 o'clock, I will be in, I think, tent D, and I will be answering questions. And then 4 o'clock, I will be back here, and we will wrap this up in a nice, neat package.
Thank you, Rosandel.
You're very welcome. Did I get you back on track?
You're doing great. You're doing great. I don't know if this was a good idea. We had so many good speakers this year that we shortened things and then gave them, I encourage you to go see them at the workshops. So we'll have to reevaluate, because these are all people who have a lot to say, and they need the time. I'm going to do something now that I wasn't going to do. I'm going to give you a shameless plug for my new book. I wasn't going to do that. Somebody told me last night, John, if you do not feel strongly enough about your book to talk about it from the stage, you don't deserve to sell any of them. So let me just tell you a little bit about this. And the books are going to be on sale back that corner and this corner. I wrote a note in every one of them. It's meaningful because when we talk about hot off the press, they literally arrive from the publisher at 2 o'clock Tuesday afternoon. It had me really nervous. This book has been on my heart for a couple of years, and I will tell you, when you get sick and are in the hospital about Lyme, it kind of makes you aware of the fact, you know what, if you're going to write a book, maybe you better do it, because I was losing my mind, literally. So my wife and I went back to Germany to get a follow-up routine in December. So guess what I did while I was in the hospital? I wrote a book, and then rewrote it 7 times, and then sent it to the publisher, and they sent it back with 4,000 edits. The book is entitled The Good Samaritans. And if there's one thing that our culture needs, is another encounter at the well. And here's why. Jesus did what no self-respecting Jewish rabbi would ever do. He met a woman of ill repute at the well in broad daylight. So there's a lot more in the book about this. I encourage you to read it, because I spent a lot of time writing it. But more than anything else, I'll give you an example. We need to talk to each other. We need to have the hard conversations. Somebody just backstage said, how did you manage to get Joel Pomerine here with a truck when you're talking about all this anti-medicine? I said, I asked them. And they were very gracious. So here's what we need to understand. If I go out here and I get hit by a truck and get run over, I want them to take me to Joel Pomerine, not a health food store, right? Because we need the acute care, and then we need health care. And that happens with having crucial conversations with people we disagree with. I wrote this book for my friends. I have a lot of friends, or at least they're friendly with me. And we disagree a lot. So I did something unconventional. You know how you read on the back of a book, praise for the Good Samaritans, and you read the quotes, and you think, man, this thing must be the best book since the New Testament. My book isn't as good as the New Testament. I quote it a lot. I went and did a sampling of my friends, and some of them were critical, some of them were positive. I did something unconventional. They're all in there. I published all of them, the good and the bad. So anyway, that's my shameless plug for the book. All right. I only have a couple hundred copies, so you better go front of the line. But they'll be available on Amazon, so you can get there later. Now I have to figure out how to make this work. Okay. Justin Rhodes, actually, he reviewed the book. So his name is in it as well. So I think a lot of you know Justin. He's been here a few times. He wasn't here last year. We're very happy he was able to come back this year. He's a YouTuber that shows people how to do real stuff on his farm, and I really appreciate that. Please welcome Mr. Justin Rhodes.
Hey. We there? Happy day, everybody. Wasn't Ruth Ann fun? And even John and his plug, wasn't that fun? Well, my apologies. This is a talk on chronic illness. Sorry for the mood kill. However, I was trained in permaculture. And one thing that permaculture taught me was to turn a problem into a solution. So maybe we can turn this mood kill into a solution. Maybe we can turn our chronic illness. Anybody in here got a chronic illness or injury? Come on now. I don't believe it. I believe it's many of us, and it's many more than it used to be. So what is going on? And so we're, in this 29 minutes, we're going to get to a solution and turn this thing into something wonderful, right? So I wouldn't believe, I've been to all these events except for last year. Congratulations, John. You're being fruitful and multiplying, and it's wonderful. Years ago, I had no idea, and I hope maybe this lady's here, but I met somebody on my way out of this very event. She knew I had Lyme disease. That's the chronic illness I dealt with. She knew I had it, and she came up to me and she said, you know what? I didn't eat for 21 days, and it healed my Lyme disease. I've heard a lot of crazy things. You guys hear a lot of crazy solutions from some of the craziest I've not yet dared to try. Urine therapy, venom therapy. Anybody gone that crazy yet? Well, it was pretty crazy for me to hear that she didn't eat for 21 days. She had to rent an Airbnb, take her mother, and she was a young mom, and just get away from the kids and focus on this and find healing. And at the time, I put it in the box with venom therapy. What's the frog therapy, Rebecca? I don't know, you lick a frog or something. And then in venom therapy, if you don't know, is stinging yourself. And then urine therapy, that's pretty self-explanatory, right? You're drinking your own urine. Okay. Little did I know, years later, I would become into so much pain that I would not only meet that woman's wager, I would surpass it and find healing myself. So we're going to get to that. So first of all, though, before I came here, I went and lived with the Amish for a couple of days. And one thing I really appreciate about them that we've already adopted in my own life is before the meals, they would do silent grace. We got any Amish here that do silent grace? Before the meal, it's just quiet. And for me, I've decided to stop talking in my prayers and to start listening. And I'm going to listen until I hear something. So how about we take 10 seconds and you guys ask the Creator or yourself, your inner self, and perhaps those are the same thing. What has this chronic illness or injury taken from you? Okay, maybe something came to mind. Maybe write it down in your notes. Maybe nothing came to mind, and that's okay too. But what has it taken from you? For me, it took, we were market farmers. We were running ministry. I was a runner. I used to run the mountains in where we live, in the mountains of North Carolina. It took away my identity as a hardworking, I worked like a chicken. I worked from dawn till dusk, never stopping. But before we go into, I'm going to lay out some ideas and some things that I've found that have helped me. But first, why care? When you come into long-term injury or long-term illness, you start to wonder. You start to, Ecclesiastes, your life. What am I doing here? What is the meaning of life? Why heal? Why do this? Why all this? I was suffering from reactive arthritis once, and basically for 6 months, it felt like my whole body was broken. And I remember we had a little baby at the time, and I just looked at him, and I found joy through him because I don't think a joint or a muscle hurt on his body. And I lived vicariously through him. But when you come into pain, you come into deeper questions, don't you? So why care? I mean, one reason I found to care, it had to go beyond me. I'm looking at the baby and enjoying life through him because there has to be more. I cared for my family. I had to live and do so that I could be there for my family. At the pit of despair of Lyme, that's the reason I have life insurance. I was ready to go. I was thinking it was going to happen. You know, finally I got the guts to tell Rebecca. I said, Rebecca, I think, I didn't want to tell her this because I didn't want her to be scared. I said, I think I'm going to die. And Rebecca, in her quick wit and wisdom, said, that's normal. That's exactly what I needed to hear. So some of y'all need to hear that. You're at the pit of despair. It's normal. And it's okay to be sad. It's okay to be sad. And it's okay to get life insurance. My mentor went surprisingly with no warning at 67 years old. And I dared to ask his children, did he have life insurance? Because when I was sitting under him as a mentor, I asked him, what do you do for health insurance? Or no, what do you do for retirement? And he said, I have 5 kids. And they're happy to take care of them. It's us who have to allow the children. We have to swallow our pride and allow the children to care for us. So I was a little worried he maybe didn't get life, but turns out he did. He taught me the difference between a man and a boy. One thing is, a man knows his immortality, and a boy thinks he's invincible. So my mentor knew he was not immortal, mortal. Okay, let's get going so I can get through all this. There was you always come into an onset. For me, it was just a muscle pain, and then just pain traveled throughout my body, all kinds of different symptoms that we dealt with. We didn't even know what it was at first. We're going to all these practitioners, finding things. But ultimately, we figured out what helped it rise, and what's helping it rise in you is ultimately stress. There are 3 kinds of stress for you note takers. There's physical stress, which for me, I was working out too hard. I was running too hard. I wasn't, keeping my heart rate within a certain range. It could be working too hard. It could be whatever. And then there's emotional stress. That's what we're familiar with. Anxiety, worry, those kinds of things. And then there's a chemical stress, which is, it could be food. It could actually be chemicals. A lot of chronic illness, you're also going to have issues with mold or heavy metals. So if you do have a chronic issue, you might look into your mold levels and mold and metal. And did I name them all 3, Rebecca? Chemical, physical, did I name them? All right. So that was a perfect storm. Because I had gotten Lyme years before. Some of you may be sitting here with Lyme and have absolutely no symptoms because your immune system is keeping at bay. But you get those 3 stresses and you get them all together, they're going to eventually overcome. And your immune system isn't going to be able to keep up with it anymore. And that's exactly what happened to me. I can remember getting the what they call a bullseye. Mine didn't look so much like a bullseye. It was just a more red swelling. We were up in New Hampshire, and my immune system kicked it right then and there. A lot of times if people get the tick bite early on, they get a bullseye, they get some symptoms early, they could really kind of nip it in the bud, and maybe this would be one of the very few and only times I would use antibiotics is then. And you could knock it out in a couple of weeks and be gone, be done with it. And by the way, I'm not a doctor, and this is not doctor advice. This is just what I've gone through. How about let's go through 8 rules. I had 12, but then I learned I only had 30 minutes. So we were going to really pack it in there. 8 rules emerge from the fight. But the good news is we're going to get the best. I've weeded out the... Okay. Number 1, we are at a homesteading event, aren't we? So how about food is fuel? You've heard food is medicine, and okay. But food is more so fuel. Why is it not medicine? I believe the medicine is actually the body, because the body has the power to heal itself. You just have to allow it. The food is the fuel. So of course, we've got to put good fuel into our tank. If you put diesel in a gas, or what was it? It's put, what'd I do, Rebecca? Was it gas and diesel? I put diesel in a gas. What happens? Good answer. Nothing. Nobody answered me, right? It won't start, it won't do. But you can get dirty fuel and go for a while, or go even for a long time, but it eventually comes up to you. If our car shakes sometimes, our Suburban, and we'll call our mechanic, what's wrong, your car's shaking? Did you go to Ingles again to get fuel? All right, Mark, you caught me. I promise, I won't go to Ingles again to get fuel, because it's known to have dirty fuel. Same thing with your body. And one of our physical or chemical stresses is that we were eating rice and beans a lot. We come from a low place financially, and that was one of the ways we got by. Rice and beans. It was really cheap until it wasn't. And you think this food is really cheap and inexpensive, but have you priced cancer lately? We learn to grow what we can't get, because what we found is they have organic bacon at the store, but where's the organic Boston butt? Or even the breakfast sausage? I don't know what they do with that. I'm going to have to write an article one time and look into that and find out what happens to the rest of that organic pig. So we learned to grow what we couldn't get. In our area, it's hard to source raw milk, and if you can, it's $28 a gallon. So if we've heard on this stage, you've got to get raw milk for your children. Well, how are you going to do that if it's $28 a gallon? Well, you're going to make memories and grow it yourself. I mean, make memories. You're out there milking the cow with your kid. Okay, so food is fuel, and so we changed. Going down our path and finding healing, we've went from rice and beans and kind of just eating whatever to eventually transitioning to organic. And then we were checking out at a grocery store, say a bundle of lettuce, and then it's $3. But if you look over there at the grocery store, it's hard to believe, seed packs for $3. Why are they doing that? I mean, there's 100 seeds in this seed pack. That's 99% savings if you just buy the seed pack and grow your own lettuce. We got into, started transitioning whole foods, and then to organics, and then to Weston A. Price, and then paleo, and then how about carnivore? That was one of the greatest things I ever did for myself, was just eat meat and fat. It really lowered my inflammation. It's one of the few diets that you can just eat as much as you want of the food on the diet. You can get stuffed and not gain weight and lower your inflammation. All right, number 2, have a new purpose. So at first, you're hit by this and you're down because it took away who you are. And you've got to find a new purpose. One of my purposes I couldn't be this market farm running this ministry, but what could I be? I still wanted to be in the food growing movement, so I decided to create the content business. And so I started teaching about what I had been learning. We'd been homesteading for 10 years, and we put out our first product, permaculture chickens, and put it up on Kickstarter and launched our business. And that was perfect for me because I could go out in the morning, work on the farm, be with my children, create the content, and then in the afternoon, edit it, work on that, and publish it. So it was a perfect balance. It wasn't a 10, 12-hour physical day anymore, and I was still in the movement. And that gave me purpose and distracted me, which is nature's greatest pain medicine, distraction. And it set me on a way, and in a way I was sort of running from the Lyme and from the chronic illness and running towards something else that was in my ability. Number 3, for you note takers, homestead. So some of you here are homesteaders and some of you are not. And you might think homesteader, you have to be this off-grid, broad acre thing, but you don't. You could start in your windowsill with a terracotta pot and a basil plant. I see someone nodding their head. The health movement is really big right now. And I wonder why the health movement and the homestead movement don't marry up more than they do, because if you homestead, you're doing all the cool health movement things. First of all, you're staying active all day so that you are tired and you actually go to sleep, and probably early. And then you probably get up early and you're getting that morning light in your eyes. You hear a lot about the circadian rhythm in the health world and how it's good to get that sun in your eyes. Well, you're doing that naturally on the homestead while getting something done, while moving. You're getting early morning cold exposure. It's good to be cold. It's good to get uncomfortable, cold or hot. So you could get the hot exposure, the heat exposure too. I'll look at it'll get past 9 o'clock in Western North Carolina, and we've still got to work in that high tunnel, right, Rebecca? And I'll just say to myself, it's just the sauna. We're just Earth Gym, and this is the sauna session. And that helps me a little bit. If I have to carry buckets out to the pigs, I might grab another bucket and make sure I carry 2. And then it's the bucket feature at Earth Gym. And you might see me going like this on my way out there. So then it becomes something good and not just something I have to do. We'll go into that sauna. Hey, Rebecca, I'm going to go in the sauna. You coming? Maybe tomorrow morning. What's the difference, Rebecca? I got all my clothes on. I don't want to sweat my clothes on. Well, we could become the naked gardeners. That is a thing. Might get more views or not. Might tank it. Okay. Number 4, make healing your job. A lot of us, men or women, we want to provide, we want to do, it gives us purpose, and then we can't, we just feel so yuck that everybody's having to dote and care on us. Actually, that's probably a pride issue. You need to just allow them to. Because one of the greatest, that's where we find meaning in life, is when we have purpose and when we're helping and doing for others. So let the people do. But your job is now healing. That means you're getting enough sleep. That means you're getting the morning sun in your eyes. That means you're getting, maybe you're sunbathing and sun exposure, and maybe you're doing it directly on the ground, on a towel, so you can ground. And you're making sure you get the sauna. If you have to do supplements, you're making sure you do that. You're making sure you get these right foods. It can become a full-time job, healing, and that's okay. Because you can't help anybody if you're disabled. That's why in the airplane they say, put the mask on yourself. It sounds weird and selfish. Put the mask on yourself before you help others. Number 5, listen to your body. It's good to have the science, it's good to have the facts, but sometimes we get overloaded. Right now we have information overload, don't we? I'll give you an example. I didn't need this. Well, when my dad died in 2019, I think it was the day after the funeral. It was 19 degrees, and I said to Rebecca, I'm going to go get in the creek. I didn't even know to call that a cold plunge. I didn't even know that was a thing. That was before cold plunging was cool. Dads, you didn't catch that pun, that dad joke there? Okay, I just went down to that creek, and Rebecca's looking out the window. And I'm 120, 200, 300 feet from the house. And I just jump in that creek and jump right back out. I don't even know how to do a cold plunge. I since learned that that's a thing. getting in cool water, at least 55 degrees, at least for 3 minutes. But I was with Joel Salatin once, and we were feeding the pigs or something, and I said, you know, how does it? We always have this question. If I throw this or that to my pigs or this or that to my chickens, how do they know they can or cannot eat it? I asked this to Joel Salatin, and he said, well, pigs don't have TV. And now I've updated that to a little bit of like, pigs don't have ChatGPT. So they don't know what they can't, they know because they don't have that, and they're not distracted, and they're in tune with their bodies. Another more recent one is this circadian rhythm thing. I didn't need the science to know. Have you ever been on a camping trip, and you're out camping, you build a fire, and then you go to bed at 7:30? And you're tired, and you sleep a long time? Well, why not camp all year round in your house? Hey, Amish, you got it on us here. Just leave the light. You don't have lights. All this English. Just don't turn the lights on at night. It's like you're camping, and you're ready to bed. You're ready to go to bed. And we tried that for a couple of weeks, and if we have to, we use a little red light, blue light, headlamp or a book light to get around at night, or electric candles, and felt great after 2 weeks. I don't need the science. Number 6, be thankful. One of the big turning points in my chronic illness journey is you're fighting this, aren't you? You're fighting something that is a core part of you. And finally, I sat down with my permaculture ethos, and I said, how do I turn this problem into solution? And I sat down there, resolved to journal and think, and I imagine that was prayer. I wouldn't have called it that at the time, but I imagine that's what it was. And I sat there until I had an answer. And if you'll be still and quiet long enough, the answers will start coming. I started thinking, wow, I really see how much Rebecca loves me, because she's done so much to get me through this. Wow, because of Lyme, we've started eating better, and our children are eating better, and we have this overall health. I have a friend, we've just struck up friendship with him recently. He's 72 years old, and he runs mountains. Well, turns out he grew up, his mom grew up in South Dakota during the Great Depression. And so he had this sledding accident when he was young, and it knocked him out. And he came to, his back was really hurting. Turns out he broke his back. And his mom comes to him, and he's down on the ground, and then she looks at him and she says, "You'll live or you'll die." So understandably, he hated his mom for 70 years. Until he's realizing he's running this mountain and laughing and having a good time. And then he realized he loves his mom. And because of that, living through life with a broken back, no going to the hospital, he had to stay on top of his health. And because he stayed on top of his health, even with a broken back, my 72-year-old friend is running mountains, hanging with 40-year-olds, while his friends are on canes, already gone. He's still running the mountain. So stop having this battle within yourself and think it. I finally came to it, and I said, thank you, Lyme. Let's go. You're on my back. Let's go. And I wouldn't be standing here without it. I wouldn't have transitioned and gotten to a content creation business and literally reached, inspired, and taught millions of people. And that is a blessing I couldn't have imagined. Okay, number 7. Oh, wait, we got a question for you. Another silent moment here. Remember, we're going to turn a problem to solution. Earlier, we talked about what did it take away? Let's now ask, I'll give you 10 seconds, what has it given you? All right, maybe you wrote it down, maybe it came to head, maybe nothing happened. Let's go into number 7, which is to rest. We always are looking for something to do. Maybe the answer is nothing to do. So rest. And John talks about it in his book. He shared with you earlier. I've read it. He talks heavily in there about the Sabbath. How have we gotten away from receiving God's gift of the Sabbath? Remember, it was a gift. And I've found that once Rebecca and I started taking the Sabbath, over the years, it has to be part of the success because I am driven to go, go, go. And at first, I had a really hard time with it. I'm really antsy, and I found, guys, I have to read on the Sabbath. I have to be doing something. If I'm going to be sitting there, I'm going to be doing something. So still read. Some of my best ideas come on the Sabbath. And what if you get behind? Because everybody's working and doing, and you get behind in your business. Or you still got to run the farm. You still got to feed the animals, but no projects. What if you get behind? Okay, what if you get behind? Bye-bye. Isn't that what homesteading is about? Being behind, embracing inconveniences. That's what it is. Go with it. Rest. Stop the fight. Number 8. Wow, I'm doing really good. 5 more minutes. Okay, 8. The body has the power to heal itself. Have you ever heard that saying? Well, in my Lyme journey, trying all different kinds of things. I've tried all kinds of things. Colloidal silver, herb protocols, antibiotics for 9 months. What are some other things, Rebecca? Sauna, hyperbaric chamber therapy, sun exposure, cold exposure, garlic, which is Alimed, really condensed garlic peels, all kinds of things. Muscle testing. So I say some of it worked, some of it didn't work. Rebecca says it all worked, and it all helped me along and got me to where we are now. But one of the greatest things that would ever happen to me was I was in so much pain. I woke up one morning with so much pain, I was even hurting in the bed. And then shuffling around in the morning, I got so upset and so done with this. I said, at that moment, people asked me, when you did your 28-day fast, did you plan it? It happened that morning when I was in so much pain. I finally said to my body, thank you. I mean, pain is a gift. My boy, in one of the hotels on the way here, got his finger underneath the treadmill and between a rubber ball, and it was our little 5-year-old, and just ripped all the skin off in his nail. And he pulled that out and looked at it. That thing was flat as a pancake, wasn't it, Rebecca? And he was screaming and yelling. But what if he didn't have pain? And that would have kept sucking that finger in. Have you ever touched a hot pot and you're pulling your hand off before you even register it in your brain? Pain. There's one of the greatest books I ever read is a book called The Gift of Pain. Another one for you pain sufferers, while we're talking about books, is The Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. This was a guy in the concentration camps finding meaning. I don't think there's any greater suffering. Being separated from his family, losing his children, and then being in a concentration camp. And he found meaning in life. And it was through purpose, something to do, responsibility. Why don't we go back to the homestead? The homestead has been one of the greatest things for me because I had to get up every morning, 7 days a week, Easter and Sunday too, whether I wanted to or not. It keeps you moving. It keeps you purpose because the cows have got to eat. So I'm sitting there and saying, I'm done with this pain. I'm not going to eat until I'm healed or 40 days, whichever comes faster. And I thought of the lady I met, and I heard a podcast, The Diary of the CEO. He had Dr. Goldhammer on there about long-term fasting and healing, and I was motivated. And sure enough, that was a big enough precipice. Some of you, you need a precipice. You need some disaster. But hopefully for others of you, you don't have to wait until that happens, because it could be too late. I'm thankful that my precipice happened early on. Doug, my friend, who's now running mountains and broke his back, I bet he's thankful it happened to him when he was very young, because he's had a healthy lifestyle since. So the body, I wanted to test that. Does the body have the power to heal itself? No supplements, no food. You should have seen all the, I stacked up paper plates at one point to show how many meals I saved. I texted our bookkeeper and I said, "Are you happy? I'm saving us a lot of money this month by not eating." A lot of time too. Stacked up all these plates. It was really hard the first week. I called it the hell week, and that's because you have to go from burning sugar to burning fat. But once you get going into burning fat, it feels really good. I felt really energetic. I actually had to hold myself back because I knew I only had so many calories. I only wanted to lose so much weight, and got into that sweet spot. I learned that the scripture says man does not eat by bread alone. I found out what that meant. Well, food is not the only thing you feed on. I learned this when there was a party, I couldn't partake, I'm Mr. Mope, I'm feeling sorry for myself, I'm just gonna go lay in the sun. I went and laid in the sun for about 20 minutes and felt like I had eaten. And I said, "What is to this?" And I asked, and turns out you're getting energy from the sun through vitamin D, stimulating the mitochondria in your body. Sleep is another one where you can find feeding. I would wake up energetic and not hungry every single morning. So finally, as my time is up, we can now ask, where is it? Yeah, we asked, what is it given you? Okay. What is your takeaway from this event? What is your 80-20? What of these 8 things, your 1 or 2 of these things that you can apply to yourself? Don't feel like you have to do it all. Maybe this was a chance encounter. Jesus was always wondering with the people he encountered, were you sent from God? So have any of us, perhaps this is an encounter. And maybe you were to hear something from this talk or another talk that is for you, and that is from God. And so maybe it's one of those things. So thank you. Yes.
Thank you, Justin. There is so much more that he could say, and he will be saying it at the workshop. I want to do a survey. How many of you got an email from me this morning, maybe you don't check your email, entitled "Putting Truth in Motion"? It went to all of you. It's probably in your spam folder. So I made a commitment last November that I was going to write a nugget about values every day. So if you look at your spam folder, if you're interested in it, just reply to it and I'll put you on the list. But here's the essence of it. Yesterday, we discovered a lot of things. Today is decision time, and tomorrow, we need to put truth to work, because unless it's implemented, it is useless. Unapplied knowledge is useless. Okay, we have a gentleman that will be speaking next, and he has a lot to say, and he has more to say at the workshop this afternoon. And this is an individual who has actually taught over 60 farm families how to sell direct. So, he told me what I missed in my book. So we're going to have to come out with revision 1 already. I read it, but I didn't put it in the book. I should have. He said, "John, did you know who Jesus first revealed that he was the Messiah?" I said, yeah. The Samaritan woman, not a Jew. That's interesting. Okay, welcome to the stage, Mr. Edwin Shank.
Thank you, John. You have this set up with the clicking. Good morning, everyone. It's good to be here with you. It's a large crowd, and was assigned to condense our 20 years of experience in direct marketing into this talk. And I might find that one of the more difficult things to do, because half an hour is not very long compared to 20 years of lived life. But we'll do what we can. I will say, unless I forget to say it more otherwise, is I will be giving another presentation in Tent D this afternoon, I think at 3 o'clock, where I will cover some more details and some of the more practical things that you can do, especially if you're interested in direct marketing and setting up. How do you, shoestring budget, how do you get started without sinking yourself? I will be explaining more the trade secrets, which with us is a verb, which we trade secrets. It's something we do. So I'll be explaining more about the trade secrets, which we will be glad to trade with you over in Tent D this afternoon. My name is Edwin Shank, and my wife is here with me today, Dawn. We farm as a family in Pennsylvania. Dawn and I are fourth generation owners on our family farm. We have 6 children. All of them are involved in the operation. They're all married except our youngest, who just started courting. So we're happy with the family. But we are pleased to work together as a family. One thing I wanted to say, as I was sitting in the audience this morning and yesterday, that kind of stood out to me is we had Sean and Beth, I believe it was, that talked about the 1 cow revolution. So we got kind of a progression here, because they really extolled the value of the cow, and they have this 1 cow revolution. That was their message. Then we had Ruth Ann this morning here, who had the 2 cow principle. She said the reason she has 2 cows is because she likes to milk cows, but she wanted a cow to help raise strong men, because that's the primary purpose of their family, of course, raising children. So they have strong men. So we have, and I like that. Cows do have a way of doing that, whether you want to or not. You've got to be there Christmas. You got to be there on your birthday. You got to be there milking, working there. It does teach work ethic. But I thought it was interesting. We have the 1 cow, and then we have the 2 cow and the creating strong men, and I really like that principle. With us, we move the progression just a bit. We have 130 cows. You ought to see our men. That to me was interesting, and it does raise strong men. I will say that. Primarily, I want to talk about New Hope. And I'll get to this story a little bit more. There's a story behind this slide. I do want to talk about New Hope, because so many times in our world today, especially in the conventional farming world, it doesn't seem like there's much hope. And I've been there. My wife and I started out conventional farming in 1990. We took over from my parents. I was born and raised on the farm. I like to tell people that my biggest move in life was moving down the hallway in the farmhouse from the boys' bedroom to the master bedroom. That's been my big move. We're still in the same place now. Here is something that we like to remind people, though, because people come to our farm. We have 1,200 acres of certified organic land. We do cows, we have pigs, we have chickens and turkeys. And people are so impressed sometimes with the food quality. I made this banner, and it's hanging in our office. When we take God's idea, His plan and His design, and just respect it and work with it, why should we be surprised that the food is a taste of heaven? And I really do mean that. I just feel we've shortened that a little bit to express the same thought in a phrase that we use a lot on our promotional material. It simply says it this way: God designed it, we respect it, that explains it. And I believe that is, in a nutshell, where the hope comes from. Because as you respect what God has done, and as we then work with what He has done, and we communicate that message to the people out there who also want those things, then we can connect together under this respecting God's design. Hope for the future, farming with the family. We started our organic journey, and let me back up to this one just a second. We have hope, but some of my impetus for this thing started with a story of despair. And this is a sad story of a farmer a number of years ago who took the life of all his cows, 51 cows I think he shot, and then he also killed himself on the same day. At the bottom of this article, which was a news story from New York, the bottom of this article, it has a little sentence which you can't read very well from where you are. I just enlarged it. It says this way. This was some other farmers that were talking to news reporters, and they said this way: "It's a hard time to be a farmer these days," one man said from inside the fence. That was in the news article. When I read this article, we were in the process of learning some of the things that we eventually went on to do. And I thought, inside the fence. Hope is outside the fence. If you're inside the conventional farming world, you know as well as I do that your food dollar, I've heard it said several times since we were here today, someone said 10%, the one that review I had done said 8 cents. I suppose it depends on what part of the, which date you got your figures from, but roughly 8 cents of the price that Americans are paying for their food actually goes to the farmer. We need to figure out how to get more of that dollar, or perhaps the whole dollar, depending on how you do it. This here is a picture of our family in about the year 2006. 20 years ago. This was just at the beginning of our organic farming journey, or about the time we decided to go organic. About the time we decided to start direct marketing. A lot of people looking at this picture say, that is beautiful. What could be more perfect? This beautiful family sitting in a beautiful backyard with flowers. My wife loves flowers, and we try to keep things nice. We enjoy that. But this actually, behind the scenes on this picture, was a very sad time of our life. Because we were young people, and from 1990 when we got married to 2006, we had poured our effort and energy into running a very efficient, very well-managed, very productive dairy farm. And I don't need to go into all the details, but just real briefly, my father had about 40 cows. And we did the wrong thing. I know we did the wrong thing, but I'm just telling you what we did, because we were following the university experts. We were doing what we were supposed to do. We grew the dairy. We grew the dairy from a 40-cow dairy to about a 340-cow dairy in those years. We were going bankrupt, because even though we were producing a lot of milk, it was clean milk, we were getting bonuses paid for the quality. The pay price was far below what we needed to pay our bills. And nobody cared. You would work all month long. You get to the end of the month, you would hold your hat out to see what the milk company put in it. That's literally the way not literally, they didn't put it in the hat. But my point is, you didn't know what you're getting paid. We were losing the farm. The bankers were talking to me right over this time period, and they said basically this way: Edwin, if you don't turn this around in about 3 months, 4 months, you're done. I told the family that because I felt like they needed to know. My daughter, Gwendolyn, she's our only daughter, 5 boys, 1 girl. Gwendolyn tells me today how scary that was. And I'm not sure, maybe I shouldn't have told them, but I felt like I needed to be transparent with the fact that unless something changes, we're going to lose the farm. And we were being extremely productive. 340 cows milked at 3 times a day, 80 pounds of milk production fills a tractor and trailer load of milk every 2 days. We were all about the volume because that's what we were taught. Anyway, that's a long story there. We eventually started thinking different out of desperation, probably. I had been reading Joel Salatin's books. It's a long story, but I was influenced the way a lot of you have been influenced. Joel Salatin was definitely influential in this. Mark McAfee from California also. But we decided to we transitioned the farm to organic. Then we also decided to start selling milk on our farm. We didn't have any money to put toward the dreams because we were out of money. We already had blown it all in the conventional farming world. I put a reefer trailer in. Reefer trailer, for those of you that aren't familiar with that term, is a refrigerated trailer. They reshorten it to reefer. Refrigerated trailer that you see going down the highway. At that point, you could buy them for about $3,000. I bought 2 of them, parked them side by side, right beside our milk house, because if you're going to sell raw milk in Pennsylvania, it is legal to sell raw milk in Pennsylvania. You don't need to sell it for pet food. You don't have to have a herd share. You can actually get a permit to sell it. If you're going to do it, though, you have to bottle it beside your milk house. And so we as a family started working. I borrowed the $30,000 that I needed from my father and my father-in-law to get started. We bought some trailers, we put in some equipment, we set up a little farm store right beside the milk house. That's our first sign, which my wife, I believe, designed. Just a piece of plywood, painted it white, some hand lettering on it. Raw milk sold here, fully permitted, 17 years ago. There's my first gallon of milk I sold to my father. He helped loan me the money, and then he still paid for the milk. What a man. But I sold the first gallon of milk to my dad, and he was glad to do that. He had been getting milk there all along, but this was the first legal gallon of milk I actually sold under a Pennsylvania permit. I got to tell you this story, though, because even though we had transitioned to farm to organic, we started direct marketing. You know, the sales as they start off are very slow, and you start small. And we still were not out of danger. We were still in very bad danger. And the bank was still starting to make those noises again, you know. We were better than we had been, but they were still scared, and we were too. I got a call from a lady in New Jersey one day. We were selling raw milk now for about a year. And she called me, and she said, "Can you deliver milk to us in New Jersey?" And I can't, not legally. And so I told her that. I said, "No, we can't." I think I actually told her that I could, but I said I could also drive 110 miles an hour there. In other words, if I'm going to break the law, I could break the law more than one way. But so I told her basically that, no, we can't do that. But I said, "Where do you live?" And she lived in Trenton, which is right beside the New York or the Pennsylvania line. And I said, I took a page out of Joel Salatin's book. Joel Salatin explained how their first metropolitan drop points, as he called them at that time, how he got them started. And he said somebody had called him and wanted him to deliver. And instead of saying no, he said, "If you give me enough orders." That's smart marketing. Make them market for you. That's what I told this lady. I said, "Well, I can't deliver to you alone, but I could deliver to the state line edge if you have enough friends." And she said, "We've got all kinds of people over here. We would love to meet you at the state border because we're driving into Lancaster County and we're getting tired of it because it's a long trip. If you could come even to state line edge, we would support you." And I said, "Here's my email address. Tell your friends and have them email me and say, 'My friend Beth Patchell told me that you might start a drop point and I'm interested.'" So I started collecting email addresses. Anyway, so I'm driving down the interstate. We got 5 orders, a grand total of 5 orders. 5 moms stepped out, committed, and ordered from us. The Yardley, New Jersey line is 3 hours from our place. You need to get that grasp. I loaded these coolers up in our minivan. Not this one, but this was a little bit later. This was maybe a year later. But I loaded my first coolers up in my minivan. I started down the highway, 5 orders in the back of the minivan, driving along, thinking, meditating, probably praying. And my wife had told me, she's actually has very good judgment, but this time she actually was wrong. She said to me, "This is kind of crazy." Well, it was a little crazy, but I said, I think it's okay because I know our food is good and I think people will respond. So I've got these 5 coolers in my van. I'm wondering sort of if maybe I am crazy. I didn't know where I was going. I'm just following my GPS. You know, never been to Yardley in my life, didn't know the area. I'm just driving along. And as I'm getting off I-95, the GPS says, you know, in 1 mile, you know, take a right off onto this certain exit. So I come to the exit, and the sign right there where the ramp went off said New Hope. And it had an arrow pointing off right there. I get emotional today when I tell that story because it went through me. I'm like, "God, are you telling me something? Is this for real? Is this real life?" You know, New Hope right here. I didn't even know there was a little town in New Hope. I wasn't going to New Hope, but it was getting me off at that exit. I actually took a picture of the sign, but I couldn't find it for the presentation, so I just made this one. Looks a little bit like a road sign, but I actually took a picture one day of the actual sign. It's in my archive somewhere. So that was the beginning of our Yardley drop points, and it grew. We started drop points in Philadelphia. It was just the family packing orders at first. We did a lot of things together. This was 4 years into our journey of New Hope, as we called it. We started collecting email addresses. I can explain that much more this afternoon. My point is to farmers out there who are thinking about this, and to buyers, consumers, I don't really like to call people that. But anyway, those of you who are buying food from farmers, there is hope, but it's in collaboration. It's working together. We started marketing online. At first, when I was actually selling to Yardley and all these places, all I had was price lists on Excel spreadsheets and Word documents. We were emailing attachments back and forth, and it was not good. But we eventually went online, and the markets continued to grow. At this point, we have 55 different delivery spots in Pennsylvania. And we're shipping food to those delivery spots, about 3 loads a day. Every Monday is UPS order days, but starting Tuesday through Saturday, averaging 3 loads per day are going out to across Pennsylvania. That's the way the majority of our food is distributed. This is actually at the Yardley drop point a few years later. Yardley is I think still one of our biggest drop points. We just meet in parking lots. Joel Salatin, again, he helped to teach me this. We bought a lot more reefer trailers. We like the idea. Remember, we didn't have any money. So therefore, you still need some infrastructure, but if you don't have any money, you get the cheapest thing you can find. Reefer trailers are insulated. There's glass board on them. They have aluminum floors. The food inspectors like them. We currently, as we speak, our farm consists of 30 reefer trailers bolted together. Now, the farm doesn't, but that is in our food production facility. We did build some more facilities since that, but that is kind of the pinnacle of our reefer trailer era. I used to tell people that I couldn't quite figure out if I had a trailer park or a truck patch. But we cobbled them together and put them to different places around the farm. Used them for refrigerators and freezers. At first, we Shanks grew everything, and I distinctly remember when somebody came to me and wanted me to sell something that I didn't grow. And at first I thought, no, because I liked the fact that we did everything. And then I reconsidered it. I'm so glad I did, because we hear a lot about survival of the fittest. In what we're talking about here today, it's survival of the collaborators. You don't want to be the fittest. You don't want to be, overpowering everybody else and putting down others. You want to work together. Today we work together. We have close to 60 families today that in some way or another are supported by what we're doing. We still produce a lot of the products, but we have other people that increasingly are coming online, and we're even shifting some of the responsibilities over to other people, because why not? When our children were small, Pasture Poultry was wonderful, because Pasture Poultry grows strong men too. They have to be out there moving the shelters and all that. But as our family grew up and started getting into other parts of management, we actually have 3 other young families today that we have blessed with growing our pastured poultry for us. I went to them and I said, would you like to do pastured poultry? And they said, we would love to, but we don't know how to market it. I said, don't worry about that. I have the market already. I just need somebody that can grow it. And I started off 2 families in the same year with each of them. They went 0 birds one year. The first year of growing chicken, they grew 10,000 chickens. We told them how to do it. We gave them our trade secrets. We actually sold them some of our brooder facilities, got them started. They're very excited because they weren't accustomed to marketing and they weren't accustomed to butchering, but they knew how to grow chickens because they were farmers. They didn't actually, they just, you know how it is. Farmers know how to take care of animals. So that was an easy thing. We had people coming to us, another story, a customer from out in the Pittsburgh area. She came to me, she said, my daughters and I make water kefir. You can look them up. Kefir Chicks is the name of it. But they make water kefir. I hardly knew what water kefir was. We didn't milk kefir, but I knew a little bit. And she said, I'd like to sell it would your people buy it? I said, well, maybe. I said, I always go by their price. I never push them down on their price. So she said, we need $5 a quart. Well, I didn't doubt that she needed $5 a quart, but I was afraid until I got some markup added on it that was going to be too much for my customers. Anyway, so I said to her, well, I think that's going to be too expensive, but she said, oh no, it'll be fine. Make a long story short, I said, well, let's try it. If you're right, we'll sell a lot of it. If I'm right, it just, we'll have to do something else. In the first 6 months, we sold 10,000 jars of water kefir for her. She was excited. I was happy too, because my customers had water kefir, which they didn't have before. That's the way it works. We call it farmer incubators. Maybe it'd be a better way to call it entrepreneur incubators, Farmers Hope incubators. Currently, we have 2 dairies, ours and another man in our local community that produced the milk for the family cow. We have 7 different families producing pastured hens. There are 11 families doing grass-fed beef. One of them is my son, one of them is my son-in-law, and then others as well do grass-fed beef. We've got 2 different families doing pastured pork. Actually, that is one of those also is my son-in-law. He lives 2 hours away from us in Chester County, but he still grows product for us, and he helps to run the delivery routes. So he and his children are out on the buses delivering food to the cities. Not all the time, but he does that when he can. It just keeps that family connection, provides him with also additional income. We've got 3 families doing pastured piglets, not pastured pork, fattening them out, but just, you know, the sows, the mama pigs doing pastured piglets. And then there is also families doing the pastured pork as well. 2 different families doing broilers, 1 family doing turkeys, and I think I actually maybe missed the actual pigs themselves in there, but there's 2 or 4 different families, I forget, actually growing the pastured pork. By working together, we essentially have created, you're familiar with produce auctions. That's a fairly common thing. What is a produce auction? Think about it. A produce auction is a place where the customers, the buyers, know where to find the food. So they come to the central location. The producers bring their product to the central location, and they can find each other. What we've done eventually, the family cow has grown into, is a food hub, not for produce, but for animal products now mostly. Although we've branched out into, you know, einkorn, whole wheat, organic bread, and that kind of good things too. So we keep expanding the amount of food that we're handling. My point is, we've created a hub, online hub, nationwide, where customers that are looking for the kind of foods that we're growing know where to find us. And so they come to us because we've been doing this for a long time. They know how to find us. They've told their friends. I got to tell you this story. We named it the Family Cow whenever we had just milk. And I was trying to think of a good name where it would connect. One mom says to another mom, "Where do you get your milk?" And she says, "From the Family Cow." And they say, "Oh, you have a family cow." And she says, no, but there's a place that sells me milk that's just like as if I had my own cow. Because I was trying to figure out how to explain what raw milk is, you know. Well, it's like as if you had your own cow. She's in your backyard, you milk her, you bring it in, put it in the refrigerator. Guess what? The cream rises, you know, all that good stuff. That's the kind of milk we sell. So I thought that was a real good name. And then we started selling eggs. And one mom said to the other mom, "Where do you get your eggs?" "From the Family Cow." Wait, this story doesn't work anymore. Anyway, it has become a brand name, and essentially people are buying it for what we do. I see that I'm basically out of time here, not quite, I got a few more minutes, but I just want you to know that I will be continuing this discussion on a little more practical nature of the how-tos, how to find those customers, how to help them find you, how to find them, how to do some of the practical things that go into this. Here are some other things that I didn't list before. We have 2 different goat milk dairies, cheese makers, lard soap makers, tallow balm. Some of that's done by our family. We own our own USDA butcher shop now, and in that butcher shop we make our own lard. But then my daughter-in-laws take it from there, and they make tallow balm in the. I'm sorry, I got my words mixed up there. We make tallow. We also make lard, but we make tallow, and they take it from there and make tallow balm. In their own kitchen, they add the essential oils, you know, it makes excellent children activity. But as you get the customer connection, then you decide to make something like tallow balm, and instead of starting off selling a jar or 2 or 3 a week, and after a while 5 or 6, when you introduce tallow balm to an eager crowd of 7,000 people across the nation, you can sell 1,000 jars of tallow balm on the opening day, because you have the people that already know where to find you. And it works the same way, the lady with the water kefir. It works the same way with people that partner with us. If they come to us with something that is hard to find in the grocery store, it ticks all the right buttons. It's organic, it's grass-fed, it's, you know, sourdough, it's einkorn flour, it's whatever. If it ticks all the right buttons, and you tell your customers about it, especially if you prime the pump a little bit, you know, you can have a tremendous success story for some entrepreneur that has this thing they want to make. I get really excited about it, because it's a way of working together with the community and we can find strength in working together. That's why one of our favorite things to tell people is that trade secrets with us is a verb. We trade secrets. We want to teach you how to do it. I want to teach people in Millersburg area in Ohio how to do what we're doing. Not just the pastured pork and that kind of stuff and the chicken. That's the easy part. But how to connect with the customer. Because if you can get the hubs built, then everyone else starts filling in the blanks. Joel mentioned yesterday about pot pie. We didn't even get into that yet. But honestly, if somebody lives in Pennsylvania and they live near us and they said, we would like to do that, we can figure out how to do it. And when we introduce that new item to our customers, you'll have a much greater chance of success because we have built the environment and the connection with the customers already. I forget where my slides stop. Oh, not quite here yet. I almost finished. This is the Old Time Meats Butcher Shop, which we bought. We did some expansion on it to bring it up to, we didn't want to buy a butcher shop. That was long story short. But during COVID, the place where we were butchering our pigs and our beef for years, the man was 78 years old, and he came to me and he said, hey, I'm going to sell out. I'm getting too old. You put more in. We offered to send employees over to put on a night shift, whatever, because we had beef and pork ready to butcher, but the freezers had gotten empty. They didn't want to work with us on that. They just weren't interested in putting on an extra shift. So we said, oh, by the way, are you still interested in selling a butcher shop? And they said they were. So we ended up owning a butcher shop. This is our current team. They enjoy carrying on. That's our team at the butcher shop. Here is our chicken butchering team. We do that in our own pasture. However, we are soon setting up to do that under USDA as well, because once you cross the 20,000 bird lines, then you do, even in Pennsylvania, you need to have USDA. Here is another team picture that we took here just a couple years ago. Maybe, is this 2 years old, Dawn? I forget. But this is our team. This is not just family. The family is all seated along the front there. You can see the little girls in the blue dresses. They're our granddaughters. Grandsons are sprinkled in there. I think we have 16 now, going on 17. It's just a tremendous blessing to be farming with family. We farm with family, and we have other supportive families around us that send their young people our way to help us. I like to tell people when they want to grow something for us, I say, yes, we will be glad to sell that item for you, but remember, we also need employees to help us fill the orders, answer the emails, pack the boxes, drive the trucks, whatever. We need that part of it too. So help us market it, and we will help you market it. You help us deliver it. We did build a new facility after 17 years of operating out of reefer trailers. We did build a new facility just last year. One of the first true buildings that we built in the family cow. We have a retail store. Only about 10% of our business is done on the local farm retail store. The other part of our business, the other 90% is online sales. So that's a good way of connecting with customers. Here's just a few shots of inside the store. We have a little cafe there as well, which has been fun because now people can actually come and they can get a organic, grass-fed, soy-free, corn-free, smoked brisket on a sourdough bread with real butter. Sally found about half a stick. So we do that in our cafe. It's good to meet people. It's not all been easy. I will tell you one brief story here right at the end. We're just about to finish. It's the little engine up at the top of the truck, not the main truck engine, but the engine that keeps things cold. He said the engine won't start. So I get out of bed and I come down and I'm thinking, and even though we were already direct marketing, it was still not financially yet flying. It was still scary. And it was cold and it was rainy and I was discouraged over that time, and I don't know anything about mechanics anyway, so you can get the feeling. It was not a good morning. But I had to go talk to him because I'm the boss, So I go down there, and I climb up on top of his truck. A little ladder goes up top, stand on top of the roof, and I'm looking down in this engine, and all I had was a flashlight and my Leatherman. Well, the Leatherman was worthless because there was a screen over top of the engine. Even if I knew what I was doing, which I didn't, I couldn't have done anything anyway, so I didn't even touch anything with the Leatherman, but I just shone my light down in the engine compartment. And I said, try it. So he hits the switch. Just nothing, no life, just a starter noise, no life. And I'm thinking, I don't know what to do. I was really frustrated. And I did something, I don't know if you should do this or not. This is maybe not theologically good, I don't know. But I kind of put a fleece before the Lord. And I said, God, I'm discouraged. I'm tired. I don't need to do this. I said, if you want me in this business, start this engine. And I was ready. I was like, what if it don't start? Am I going to just literally stop this? But I was actually in that mood. I was like, I'm going to take this. So I said, Galen, I said, try it again. That thing went boom. I mean, it didn't even go young, boom. It literally started on the first crank. And I was crying. I actually was crying. I got down off the truck and I said to Galen, first words I said to him, I said, did you see the angel? He said, what? I said, Galen, I didn't do anything to that engine except pray. I said, I didn't do anything. And so he said, well, it's running. So he took it. I'll be done here in a second, John. He took it and drove to Philadelphia. And I was so disappointed. On the way home from Philadelphia, he called me and he said, Edwin, he said the engine quit again. And I thought, oh, so it wasn't a miracle after all. It was just a delusion. It really wasn't a miracle. And then it struck me. I didn't ask God to fix the engine. I said, start this engine. The engine started and it was still broke. We had to take the thing to the garage. I forget what it was, but there was something still broke about the engine. But it ran while he went to Philadelphia and unloaded his load and came back. And it shut off when it wasn't needed anymore. I still claim it as a miracle. That's my story. We'll continue the story and more of it this afternoon at 10D. Thank you.
There's always a story. We're going to swap out some technology here, and I'll tell you a story. We do a lot of work for automotive, and delayed deliveries are absolutely unacceptable. And I can't tell you how many times I've had widows pray to fix high-tech equipment. Widows have a very special relationship with God. So let me see here. No, it's not. Well, this will be the next story. I had a friend of mine that came to me and said, the next book you write should be about all your screw-ups. That's a multi-volume book. I'll be right back.
Remember the Sam Gerard story?
Check, check. Okay, well, I have a quick story to share. How many of you have heard the story of Sam Gerard? Sam was an Amish guy from Kentucky that made chickweed salve, and long story short, the FDA ended up putting him behind bars for making chickweed salve. And here in the last few years, I became friends with Sam. We printed his book for him. And during that time, I kept telling Sam he needs to start making chickweed salve again. And he said, no, I can't do it. My family won't let me do it. They're afraid I'll have to suffer at the hands of the FDA again, so I can't do it. And I kept pushing him and pushing him. And finally, I said, you know what, Sam? Sell me the recipe. And So it took him 6 months, and finally he decided he'd tell me the recipe I told him, I'll buy the recipe from you, I'll start making it, and if you ever want to make it again, or you or your family ever wants to make it again, you can make it as well. So I bought the recipe. This is from our first batch, and one of the reasons I bought it is because I don't want to believe that our government is so bad that they would put an Amish guy into prison for making chickweed salve. They did it. I'm going to do it again, and if I go to jail for making chickweed salve, all of you will know that our government is really, really bad, or that the FDA is really, really bad.
I'll come visit you in prison.
Don't let me go into an orange suit. But if you want some chickweed salve, we're selling it down at the Timbercrest booth, I think tent C, and then it'll also be available at Berlin Seeds if you want some. So it's an chickweed herbal salve. It's for skin disorders, rashes, all sorts of skin disorders. People have used it in place of burn and wound salve is great for burns. People have switched out between burn and wound salve and chickweed salve just to get variety. Who wants this jar? There we go. If I throw it further, I'll hurt somebody. Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, we've got our technical problem solved. Please welcome Kelly McKenna to the stage. And then we have one final speaker, Dr. Julian Dawes, will close the show this morning. Kelly, please come forward.
Morning, everyone.
Just have a moment. So we're going to delay lunch a little bit, so not to worry. Because I want to give Dr. Dawes the full time. I know there are a number of people that want to hear him speak. Also, the make and take, we only have 3 slots left to butcher chicken. They recommended that you just first come, first served. I'll tell you a secret, book online, because if you don't, they will all be gone. Okay, sorry about that, go ahead.
Thank you. I'll try to save us a few minutes too. Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here again today. I think some of you may have heard me speak last night. Last night I shared mostly the story of my health and how you could think about unexpected sources that may be contributing to chronic diseases that you or those in your family may have or may be at risk of. Today, I'm meant to talk to you about preventing chronic and environmental diseases, and I want to apologize in advance that I did bring notes with me today. I usually don't speak with notes, but after spending time here and meeting some of you after my talk yesterday, I thought that the most useful thing I could tell you about today was actually this concept of time travel and how time travel might actually be the solution to the future of medicine and the solution to ending chronic disease. So the title of my talk today is called A Wrinkle in Time, and we moved to the next slide already. A Wrinkle in Time, which is a children's book that some of you may or may have not read. It was published in 1962, and the basic premise is that children in the book use time and space travel to learn new things and new perspectives that change their life and change the way they see their life. Now this book, the author tried 26 different publishers before a publisher actually agreed to publish her book. I guess publishers didn't think that there was value in the concept of time travel. A year after the book was published, it won the award, the Newbery Award, which is essentially the prize for the most successful children's book in the country. And so I want to lean into that time travel concept here with you all today. So first question I want to ask you is, how many of you in the audience think that America is healthier today than we were 50 years ago? Okay, I don't see any hands up, and that's correct. We are in actually a health crisis when it comes to chronic disease. We have more doctors than ever, more hospitals than ever, more specialists than ever, more technology than ever, more medications than ever. Yet rates of chronic disease continue to rise to record levels. So a few of you asked me after my speech last night, what is chronic disease? So I want to clarify that up front. Chronic disease, as opposed to infectious disease or acute illness that's kind of sudden onset and you don't have control over it, chronic disease would be things like diabetes, heart disease, autoimmune disease, even things like Parkinson's disease. They build over time. Generally, the exposures start in childhood. and they're largely preventable. As much as 80% of these illnesses are preventable, mostly through diet, lifestyle, and controlling your environment. So a quick look at where we are today. 76% of adults in America have at least one chronic disease. 40% have two or more. 40% of kids now have at least one chronic disease. We have 1 in 3 kids being overweight or obese, 1 in 5 kids having diabetes or prediabetes. These are numbers that were completely unheard of 50 years ago. Obesity has grown from 13% in the 1960s to 40% today. And again, all of these are being shaped largely by the same root causes, and those root causes are what I'm going to talk with you about today. And so what if I told you that if you were to travel back in time, you could dramatically reduce the rates of these illnesses? So I found data, I was looking up, health in the Amish population versus health in the general American population. What I found, the CDC did a study in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, in Old Order Amish, and they compared rates of various diseases there to rates of national illness for non-Hispanic US white populations. And diabetes, they found the incidence in Lancaster County among older Amish, 3.3%. National rate, 13.2%. That means it's 400% lower in the Old Order Amish County in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. For hypertension, it was 300% lower. For high blood cholesterol, it was 140% lower. And I did find a study looking at cancer rates here in Holmes County, found that the cancer rate was 56% lower here than the national US average. And what the authors of these studies emphasized, of course, there are many factors that influence these diseases. Strong community and limited use of technology were major contributors, actually verified by the science. So at the same time that we're having all these chronic diseases, we're now starting to see that the most important medical authorities in the country are giving us advice that is the way that all of you live here. We had the US dietary guidelines come out, reissued earlier this year, and the number one takeaway from those guidelines, the most important message, eat real food. The American Academy of Pediatrics has released 2 policy statements recently noting urgent crises that kids are not getting enough time outside and kids are eating way too many of their calories from ultra-processed foods. Both of these are driving these illnesses rates in kids. The US Surgeon General's office a couple weeks ago just released an urgent advisory on the fact that kids are spending way too much time on screens. Screen time is now proven by science to be contributing to obesity, sleep disruption, depression, anxiety, and more. The American Medical Association just released a statement on the importance that the medical system and doctors start looking at prescribing food as medicine rather than prescribing prescriptions as medicine. And that's something that actually Ohio is a leader on. So in my job at my organization, I run a national nonprofit called End Chronic Disease. Our mission is to help eradicate these illnesses in America. And we do that by advocating for systems and policy change, and then traveling the country to educate people on the root causes of these diseases in hopes that they can make better decisions to support their health. The food as medicine concept is something that's really starting to get a lot more attention. Just a couple of weeks ago, a major landmark study was published in Massachusetts that looked at 3,000 Massachusetts individuals on Medicaid. So these are low-income individuals, and all of them faced illness. There was a control group that did not receive any sort of food as medicine advice, and then 2 of the 3,000 individuals were specifically given prescriptions to eat medically tailored, medically designed food meals for their specific conditions. By the end of the study, there were 31% reduction in hospitalizations for these individuals who are already sick after 6 months, 20% reduction in emergency room visits, an average savings of $3,400 per patient. And the entire program paid for itself 90% in the cost savings. So you have essentially no additional cost, and you're switching from pills to food and having these dramatic outcomes. And I know you all know this here, you eat very well, so I don't want to belabor the food as medicine point, but I want you to know that your state is a leader here. In the state of Ohio, they do give produce prescriptions, and it's one of only a few states who have already entered this space. Yes, very proud of Ohio. But ironically, what I want to highlight is, imagine 100 years ago, someone time travels from the future to come back to you and tells you The most important public health advice coming from the federal government to tell people how to be healthy is 3 words: eat real food. How confusing would that be 100 years ago to even think, is anyone eating food that's not real? What is food that's not real? And that is actually what's making up a majority of our diets right now. US children on average, looking across the country, are getting 70% of their calories from foods that are ultra processed. For adults, it's around 60%. These foods are designed to be addictive. They're actually designed by tobacco scientists to keep people addicted to them. They are significantly lacking in nutrition. They are disruptive to the microbiome. They are often high in sugar and salt, and they're toxic. So that's something that our organization is trying to work on, to remove those foods from school lunches and try to help people understand that eating those is not doing any favors for your health. And I want to share specifically about kids, just a few statistics. Right now, 90% at a desk every day, affects nearly every major organ and every major driver of disease. It helps regulate blood sugar, lowers risk of heart disease, supports brain health, it improves sleep, it reduces stress, it helps maintain muscle mass. There are very few interventions that can hit all of these points, and there's actually research that shows that movement and fitness can be just as effective at changing your mood as antidepressants, with none of the side effects and with all of the positive additional effects that an antidepressant pill won't give you, with all of the health effects that I just talked about. So to give you some numbers to compare Amish movement versus general US population, the average American right now is walking 4,000 to 5,000 steps per day. I'm not someone who counts my steps, so when I heard those numbers, I thought, maybe that sounds like a good amount, thousands and thousands of steps. Well, the average old order Amish man, this has come from a specific study, walking 18,000 steps per day. That's 4 times the national average. And the average old order Amish woman walking 14,000 steps a day. The average American is sitting 6 to 10 hours a day. Only 24% of US adults are meeting recommended daily activity levels, and only 20% of children are meeting these levels. Now, what do you think doctors are starting to tell people in their clinics to do? Move more. As if it's some revolutionary scientific crazy technological innovation. I also want to touch on mental health, because movement is very linked to mental health. Lack of movement is strongly linked to poor mental health. Depression has reached record levels in our country. 18.3% of US adults currently report having depression. That's up 75% in the last 10 years. 11.4% of adults took a prescription medication for depression in 2023. 15.3% of women did so, and 1 in 4 Americans are receiving mental health treatment. Again, I can't underscore enough, there is research showing that movement and exercise is just as effective as these medications with no side effects. The next area I want to talk about is screen time and green time. Green time would be time spent in nature. As we all know, the Amish population largely does not use technology in the ways that modern society does. Limited TV, internet, smartphone use. Right now, the average American is spending 90% of their time indoors, and we have adolescent children spending 8 or more hours per phone, hours per day on their phone. That's more hours than many Americans work a full-time job. That's not the average number. The average range is between 4 to 7, but for many it's 8 or higher, and it just keeps increasing. And like I said earlier, the research is clearly showing us that this screen time is biologically driving chronic disease development. So why is it important to spend time outside? Well, first of all, the sun is outside. That's the most efficient way for us to get vitamin D. A large portion of Americans are deficient in vitamin D, and it's no surprise if you're spending 90% of your time inside away from absorbing that vitamin. Vitamin D is strongly linked to your immune system and your overall health. The air quality is better when you go outside. You have fresh air. When you're inside, much more exposed to potential toxins. Being outside, you're exposed to microbial diversity. That is very important to your immune system and your microbiome, your gut, where you absorb nutrients and you fight disease. 70% of your immune system is located in your gut. So when you're outside touching dirt, touching animals, being exposed to germs. This actually is very, very supportive of your immune system. And countless studies show us that being outside lowers stress, lowers depression. It improves sleep, it improves well-being. There's actually studies that show that patients in hospitals who are their bed is placed near a window or near plants, they experience less pain and they recover more quickly. So this is not about being anti-technology, but it is about being intentional with technology. Ask yourself, what is technology maybe doing to me, my body, my faith, my community? So takeaway number 3, less screen time, more green time. The next I want to talk about is very important, is the concept that health happens together. As humans, we are biologically, genetically wired. God made us this way to interact with our community, to be in family, to spend time around others. When you are not spending face-to-face time with people, you're not getting signals of safety. We're designed to be, when we're around other people, we make eye contact and we talk with you and we see your faces. Right now I'm looking at all of you, I feel safe. That actually tells your nervous system you're not in danger, you are supported, and you are doing the things that you should be doing as a human. Right now we have the number of Americans with no close friends has quadrupled in the last 20 years. Americans in 2003 were spending about 60 minutes a day with friends. In 2023, that number had dropped to 20 minutes a day. That's a 66% decline. Now let's look at family. Family is one of the most powerful sources of connection and relationships. Family gives us people to care for, people who depend on us, people to celebrate with, people who help us carry burdens when life becomes difficult. Right now, the average American family is having 1.6 children, many having no children at all. And we can thank communities like the Amish who have, I wasn't able to find a nationally representative sample of the exact number of children in an Amish family on average, but I can guarantee it's well above 1.6, so thank you for that. I come from a family of 3 siblings and 32 cousins. Family is everything to me. People living alone. 1960, 13% of Americans lived alone. Today, that number has grown to 29%, so 1 in 3 households, someone living alone. Living alone has become normal in this country. Another thing to look at is church attendance. In the 1970s, about 40% of Americans were attending church. Today, on average, that is in the range of about 20 to 30%, but varies widely by community and geography. And so why does all of this matter for your health? If you heard me talk last night, I underscored these statistics as well. Social connection is extremely important to your long-term health. People who have poor social connection are at 50% higher risk of developing dementia. Dementia is a gateway to a number of other chronic diseases. And people with poor social connection are 30% higher risk of heart disease, stroke, and premature death. Community matters just as much as food, just as much as movement. And the last thing I want to talk about is having purpose in life, having meaning in life. Science is showing us now how much this matters. We all know it, we all feel it, we live it every day. The rest of the country has not been living it, has not been feeling it, and are suffering the consequences. So the idea of purpose is the belief that your life has meaning, your work has value, and your actions are something greater than yourself. It's having a reason to get out of bed each day that goes beyond your comfort and beyond your entertainment. Much of American culture is designed around comfort and entertainment. Researchers consistently find that purpose is strengthened by being needed, serving others, having strong relationships, having faith, having responsibility, and contributing to something larger than yourself. These are values that I see so strongly in this community. People with a strong sense of purpose have been shown in multiple research studies to have 15 to 20% less risk of dying. Studies consistently find that people with strong sense of purpose have lower heart disease risk, lower depression risk, better cognitive aging, and better resilience after health setbacks. So again, I want to compare what's happening in America generally from this approach and what I all see here. America, you generally build your life towards the concept of retirement and independence, and the thought that once you reach your retirement age, your productivity ends and you're kind of just living in the in-between space between when we retire and when you pass away. Right now, only 52% of Americans describe themselves as thriving. 58% of Americans aged 18 to 25 report having little or no meaning or purpose in their lives. This is sad. I feel sad even reading these numbers to you. Compare this to communities like the Amish community. People wake up being needed. Animals need feeding. Fields need tending. Grandchildren need guidance. Churches need volunteers, and neighbors need help. People are embedded in community roles here throughout their life, and work remains meaningful into older age. So maybe the question is not, what is medicine missing? Maybe the question is, what is modern life missing? And maybe that's why Amish country fascinates so many people, like it fascinates me. Not because it reminds us of the past, and it does, but because it reminds us of things we may need again in the future that may be critical to our health. So with that, I'm finished with my speech today, and I'm again so honored to be here, and I would love to talk with any of you afterward who are interested. Thank you for being here with me.
Thanks.
Good morning. Who's hungry already? So if you want to go get lunch instead of finding a bit more about Lyme, you're free to do so. Else, I have a presentation ready for you. Yeah, so far.